I'm Jason with Saving Sally, and today we're going to be talking about an issue that I had on my instrument cluster where the temperature of the engine coolant was reading around 130 degrees, which is way too cool for these cars. It read there no matter how much drive time or how hard I ran the car, and I could feel of the radiator hoses and know that it was well beyond 130 degrees. So I knew I had a problem, and I wasn't sure exactly where to start. So what I started doing is trying to figure out exactly where the problem lies, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how I found it in this episode. So looking into the problem, as far as I could find, there are only two engine temperature sending units in this car, one of which is right up under the throttle body, and that one I'm not exactly sure what its function is. I've been told everything from operating the fan to sending a signal to the computer so the computer knows how hot the car is. Somebody knows, so if you do know, please put that in the comments because I would like to know, and I can add it to the description later. The second sensor that I changed out is immediately behind the number one spark plug. On the driver's side, if you raise the hood, it was located right here, immediately under this heat shield. It just wasn't something that I could see very well from up top, and certainly not something I could film very easily. It ended up being this one that was causing the instrument cluster to not read properly. But we're going to start off with the way that I did it, and let's first get the number one changed out. So to get this particular temperature sending unit changed, I first need to remove this intake tube because it's located directly underneath the throttle body. With the tube out of the way, there was another hose here that I thought might be a problem. It ended up not being, but your mileage may vary. It was pretty easy to unplug, and it used a 19mm socket to unthread it. So just be aware that when you do pull the old one out, you are going to begin to lose some coolant. So a good piece of advice would be to have the replacement immediately available so that you can thread it in by hand, and that way you can stop as much of the water flow as possible. Once you've tightened it back up, it's as simple as plugging back in the connector, replace the intake tube, and this particular part of the job is done. So now let's move on to the second sensor. You'll have to overlook the bad film quality here. This is literally the best I could do. Believe me, I tried. So the first thing I noticed about the old sensor is it is different from the new one that I bought to replace it. Now, that may be because it's been superseded and the old sensor is just not produced anymore. It could also be that that sensor never belonged in the car in the first place. Maybe this thing was changed out several years ago and they just used a sensor out of an older model. Because the type of sensor that I'm removing now is what is listed for the second gen F bodies, and the type of sensor that I put in to replace it was what I found that was listed for the third gens. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe somebody who knows a little more than I do, please let me know in the comments because I am curious about this one as well. This particular sensor came off with a 13/16 deep well socket, but not any deep well socket. I had to use one that was a little shorter than some of the other deep well sockets that I had, but that had a hex head on the back so that I could turn it with a wrench. The reason for that is that there were some steel lines in the way that I just couldn't use with a normal socket and ratchet, so the wrench method did work. And I'm sorry I didn't film the actual swapping out. As soon as I pulled the old plug, I was afraid it was going to flood my phone if I put it back down there, so I didn't have it. And I just very quickly threaded the new plug in hand tight and then finished tightening it with the socket like you saw. Once that was done, I just went ahead and plugged it back up, plugged back in the spark plug wire, and gave the car a quick engine test. So this is after about 1.5 miles of driving, and you can see that my temperature came up to normal operating temperature. So in my case, the second sensor definitely solved the problem. It was really not easy for me to figure out which did what. I was all over the forums, and certainly there was a lot of information out there, but a lot of that information was conflicting information. So I wanted to put something out there that was a real live step-by-step process of how I got it done. So hopefully if you find yourself in a position where your instrument cluster is not reading the temperature as you think it should, maybe you'll have a little bit better starting point than I did. One final thing I want to throw in there before I wrap this video up is that this sign is still up for grabs. If you're one of those people who feels like you never win anything on YouTube, just know that there are only 4 entries that have been put in to win this sign, and I think that I have probably, I don't know, maybe around 20 subscribers to go before this sign is given away. So this sign is definitely still up for grabs, but I'm not going to tell you how to win it in this video. If you want to know that, you're going to have to go back and look at some of my earlier videos and figure out exactly what you have to do to win this sign. So, until next time, this is Jason, and this has been Saving Sally.